Hi, I'm Mitchell Chadro, your host. Today, we're here with Michael Houlihan and Bonnie Harvey. Go to mitchellchadro.com/show010. Please sign up to my email list for the latest special offers exclusive for our Listen Up Show Startup Entrepreneur Podcast audience at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I have been providing business advice, resources, and help to entrepreneurs for over 20 years, and I'm looking forward to helping all of you. Sign up for my email list, again, at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I will provide you with full transcript for each interview, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, the Startup Checklist, and many other education and training materials, all back at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. Now enjoy the show. Michael Houlihan and Bonnie Harvey sold Barefoot wine to E J Gallo Winery, which happens to be the largest private winery in the United States. So welcome, Bonnie. Welcome, Michael. It's exciting to have you both on the Listen Up podcast and the Mitchell Chadro Show this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much, Mitchell. We are delighted to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Mitch.
That's terrific. Now, they also co-authored the New York Times best-selling business book, The Barefoot Spirit, How Hardship, Hustle, and Heart Build America's #1 brand. And simply, you have to read this book. I mean, what you will learn are the lessons of how they actually built their popular brand, Barefoot Wine, which is really cool. I mean, it's really an entrepreneurial guidebook. I mean, it takes you literally from startup to taking you straight through to business to the next level. And it's also very entertaining as well, I have to say. It's also required reading at several universities teach entrepreneurship. So that's also most definitely a plus as well, Bonnie and Michael.
Yes, thanks so much. We gave our stories to Rick Cushman, who wrote the book, and he's a wonderful journalist. And he was the Sacramento Bee wine writer for many, many years. And he has a wonderful sense of humor. So the book really turned out to be quite fabulous. So we're very happy with that.
Well, I'm really excited about the book too, and for everybody else to kind of get it and listen to it as well. But you're also the co-authors of 2 business blogs. I mean, you have the barefootspirit.com and the brandauthority.net. I mean, it sounds as if you guys sound like you're more busy now than you were back in 2005 when you actually sold the wine business.
Yes, absolutely. And we're actually more excited about what we're doing now because it has a much broader reach. So many people today are out there and they're kind of freaked out about that big creepy tunnel that they're about ready to jump into, and we just came out of it. So we can give them some guiding principles.
Well, we're going to, and I'm very excited about that as well, and I'm certainly going to take you from the beginning starts to where you're actually at today to sort of give everybody the depth and the experience and what they can sort of gain from all of your wisdom and all of your lessons. I mean, I kind of call you guys the entrepreneurial spirits. I mean, literally and figuratively, you're entrepreneurial spirits. And so, you know, maybe you could first tell us your story about how you first got together back in 1983 when you first met, because that's really how it all began, even before you started the business in 1985. So if you can just tell people a little bit about how you two met and how you got together, and I think that'll help explain how the story began.
Sure. Well, we actually met in a rock and roll club.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was great fun, and it was really a hot group, and they were rocking out, and Michael actually came up to me as I walked in the door.
Okay.
He said, I bet you're looking for a drink. That was his opening line. And I said yes, and he went about getting me a drink, and he said, well, while I get you a drink, why don't you look around and see if there's somebody here that you'd rather be with? I thought, well, that's pretty, ballsy. Yeah,
very gutsy, I would say.
I guess. So I set about doing so, and he came back with my drink, and I wasn't there. I was out looking around to see who else was there. So,
Yeah, right. Right.
Sarcasm and humor that attracted us to each other from the very beginning, and that's been a big part of why we've stuck it out for the last 33 years.
Well, it sounds like, your inner voice came on and you said, you know what, I think this is meant to be. And so as you sort of, started your own relationship, I'll take it to 1985, and I remember the 80s very well. I mean, some people say that the 80s are coming back. Our startup round. Students, business owners, those individuals out there who want to start up something new, they need a presence online, and they need a web hosting company that they can trust and they can count on, and that's reliable and helpful. So what did I do? I teamed up with the good folks at Hosting, where they offer my podcast audience 25% off their web hosting package. Check them out at mitchellchadro.com/hosting. That's mitchellchadro.com/hosting. Start your plan today. How did you actually come to Barefoot Wine? I mean, how did you sort of develop the concept and the ideas, and how did that all come about?
So I meet this gal in this club, and we start this one-nighter that lasts for 33 years. But after we've only been together for about a year, she comes to me and she says, I've got a client and I'm doing his books and I'm doing his oversight. He's a grower, a grape grower. He hasn't been paid for his grapes for 3 years. And one of the largest wineries that owes him the money owes him about $300,000. And maybe you could go over and talk to them and see what you can get out of them. So I went over, and the day I showed up, they had declared bankruptcy, so it did not look good for the home team.
Wow.
But I managed to look out the window, and I saw a row of tanks. I looked out the other window, and I saw a big bottling line. And I said, well, listen, why don't we just trade goods and services for the debt, and you can clear the debt? And they liked that because it was a way that they could look better to the bank and what have you. So here we had goods and services.
And what were they?
We had Cabernet Sauvignon, and we had Sauvignon Blanc, and we had bottling services, so we could put the Cabernet and the Sauvignon Blanc into any bottle, any way, and so we went out into the marketplace and asked the buyers what they wanted, and they were surprised because nobody had ever asked them what they wanted. Everybody came in there and told them what they had to sell and the features and benefits thereof. So here we are saying, look, we're hat in hand. We don't know what we're doing. We're not even in the wine business. We've got a debt we're trying to clear. We were given a trade, goods and services instead of funds, and now we have to convert the goods and services into funds. What do you suggest we do? So they gave us some great suggestions, which we followed. And today we tell young people who are starting businesses or building their businesses, don't finish designing your product or your service until you talk to the people in the distribution system about what it should look like, because you really need to have access to market. It doesn't matter how good your product is. You have to get into the market. So that's how we got started. We're actually clearing a debt for a friend.
So it sounds as if that you really didn't have time, though, based on the fact that, you had this offer, for the use of the winery, and this fellow's coming out of bankruptcy. He's owed all this money. It didn't really seem like you had a whole lot of time to start testing the various different ideas along the way. I mean, we always hear about, avoid the analysis of the paralysis, where, you're constantly analyzing, testing, and looking and doing, and yet you're never getting started. So, what do you tell people as far as that goes? In other words, yes, you want to be able to talk to as many people, but on the flip side of that, you don't want to sort of just be so overwhelmed that you don't get going.
Exactly. You really don't want to miss the opportunity, Mitchell. And those opportunities come and go, and they come and go every day. So it's really a matter of which opportunity you want to jump on and really take advantage of. And once you decide, you really have to be quick about it. We went into the marketplace. We asked forklift drivers. We asked bottling line managers. We asked stock clerks, all the things that they were concerned about when it came to our type of product and what it was that they liked and what they didn't like. and how it affected their job. And the information that we got back was really enormous. As far as the amount of time we had 4 months to do our research, and then we were pretty much ready to go to bottling. We had an agreement. We had a label. We had a few months after that. It was bottled at Easter of 1986. So it was a lot of work to do, plus all the compliance. You know, alcoholic beverage is a controlled substance, so there was a lot of compliance to get caught up on as well. But there's nothing like jumping in there and getting started to figure out what's really going on.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I hear you say all of that, it almost seems like it can be extremely overwhelming. And so, you know, it also sounds like you're also very natural in sort of going up to people, talking to people, asking questions. And so you have a lot of people that are out there that are either shy introverts or, you know, they're on the fence. You know, it seems to be so overwhelming to them. So how did you guys kind of, you know, not be as stressed out about it or sort of take it as it comes, so to speak, and sort of make it happen in only 4 months?
Well, you know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, and I'm here to tell you that being undercapitalized is certainly the father. We had both of those parents, and we had to move quickly to take advantage of these opportunities. So we didn't go out and just do tons and tons and tons of research, you know, and focus groups and whatnot. We said, hey, we don't really have time for that, so let's go talk to the store clerks and find out what's moving from their standpoint.
And I have to add here that we did that in person. We weren't just making phone calls or this sort of, but it's face-to-face meetings that really make the difference. People will give you their attention when you're right in front of them and talking with them, and there's nothing like it.
And
yeah, you know, yeah.
I was going to say, and one of the people that we talked to was a winemaker who was a very celebrated winemaker, and he was actually our client. He was the one whose debt we were trying to clear. And we asked him, we said, hey, Mark, you know, what's missing in America today? He says, that's interesting you ask, because I just got back from France, and when I'm over there, you know, I get these great vin de tables, you know, wine of the table, basically, that come in these liter bottles. And the wines are fabulous, and they're inexpensive. They're soft on the palate. They're easy drinking. You know, they have a little bit of sweetness, and they're big fruit. And I said, well, that's an interesting profile. Is that what you think we should do? And he said, yes. He says, America needs a good vin de table. So basically a good personal house wine. And so that gave us the idea for, okay, so we've got goods and services. They can give them to us any way. We want it this way. So we actually asked for the winery that owed the money to help us put the product together in a particular configuration, in a particular style of packaging that really worked. Now, as far as the label is concerned, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, no, I was definitely going to ask you about the label concept and actually how you came to the logo itself, because I think that is really, really neat. And it almost kind of reminds me of when I was reading the book and Bonnie was talking about that inner voice that basically said, you know, this is the guy that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Was it that same type of inner voice when you kind of came up with that label, that concept, the foot and the positioning of it and you know, the lettering of it?
That is so true, Mitchell. I don't want to sound woo-woo. It's not like I have voices in my head.
No, I appreciate that, but it's that, you know, I almost refer to it like as a sixth sense. So, for example, it's kind of like your gut feeling, you know, like when you meet somebody and you say, gee, you know, this person is really a nice person. He's very likable. Or, you know, you ever meet somebody and you say, you know, this person kind of just gives me the creeps. So it's kind of like that inner voice, that gut feeling that, you know, this seems right.
Yes, it's a feeling that is so strong and it feels so right that you just cannot ignore it. And when we got a lot of leads about what the label should look like, we were told that it should not be in French and that it had to stand out on the shelf. The name had to be the same as the logo, and it had to be something that people could easily recognize and remember. All of these things about the label we were taking into account when we designed it. So once we decided that Barefoot was the correct thing for the label to be, we started designing the label. And we came home late one night, and I told Michael, I said, I know what the label looks like. And that is really when it hit me very strong. It's like I saw the whole picture in my mind, and I was so excited about it. I said, we've got to capture this right now. I said, I know what the label looks like. I didn't say I've got an idea or let's work on it, but I said, write it down. This is what it is. I said, I can see it stacked in the supermarkets. I said, this is going to sell a lot of wine.
Yeah,
so I had Michael draw a foot on the blackboard, and I said the word barefoot was going to come into the arch of the foot, and he did that, and that was the very first sketch of what is now the label.
Really, really neat. I've always been fascinated with how people kind of come up with those ideas, and when I heard about that, after enjoying the wine myself, I thought, wow, that is so fascinating. So now that you've created this label and you're running the business, and it sounds like you finally kind of got it off the floor, and it's kind of moving forward, and you've talked to all these people, you eventually then turn and you sell this iconic brand that you've kind of built to really a national brand. To E J Gallo, one of the biggest wine names, really, in 2005. So tell us how that all came about, that relationship, and, why at that point did it make sense to sort of sell it and to that business, and, take us through that a little bit. I think that would be, really insightful.
Well, when you go into business, you really go into business for one of three reasons. You either go into business because you like the business a lot, you have a passion for it. That's called a lifestyle business. And most people in lifestyle businesses, they have no thought to selling it, and the business is very dependent upon themselves. And these are like single service providers, whether it be a doctor or dentist or a lawyer, unless they form a corporation that goes on beyond them. And then the second reason they might go into business is legacy. They might think, well, I'm going to build a business, and my kids are going to take over the business, and they're going to take care of me in my old age. And, good luck with that one. And then the third reason that most people go into business is to build a brand and sell it. So this is actually monetizing on their brand equity. Now, when you go into business for this third reason, you don't make any profit. You don't really get paid very much the entire time you are in business. And the reason is because you're taking every dime's worth of profit that you have and putting it into growth. And growth is really expensive because once you get out there and you start to really get into your business and you see it's starting to grow, you realize, oh my gosh, I've got to, provide customer service for all the sales I've made. I've got to keep everybody happy. I have to have a good reputation. I have to be a hot seller. I probably need a representative in every territory I'm in. I certainly need a call center. And so before you know it, you start to realize that this is an expensive process. Well, why are you doing it? You're doing it because you're building that brand up to the point where it will become an acquisition target, where the big boy is going to look at you and say, you know what, I better buy it before somebody else does, or I want to buy this because it's taken off like a rocket, or what have you. But as far as the owners are concerned, this is payday for them. This is what they've been working for all these years. Now, most businesses think, this will take me about a year or two or three, and then I'll sell it. Well, in our case, it took 9
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a get-rich-slow scheme, Mitchell.
Yeah. Wow. It's fascinating that's your business advice to those out there when they're actually looking at it. From what I read that, you didn't have a whole lot of resources in terms of, from a monetary perspective. You didn't have a lot of sort of experience within that business niche. And so what does that really tell people out there who are basically on the fence. They're worried, well, what's it going to cost me, or how much is it going to be, or I'm not as experienced in this particular area. What are some of the practical lessons then, some of the nuggets of wisdom that they can sort of take away from what you've learned in addition to what we've already talked about?
Well, it's true. Barefoot Wines became extremely successful on our watch during the 19 years that we had the product. And one of the big reasons that we were able to be so successful and to be one of the fastest growing wine brands in the nation, excuse me.
That's okay. We'll just keep going.
Okay. One of the reasons that Barefoot Wines was so successful is because we were really able to concentrate on sales and to concentrate on customer service. And one of the reasons that we could do that was because we had contracted services for so much of the operations. We contracted out with a winery for bottling services. We had printers that we worked with. All the contracted services that we had somebody in our office that was a manager that would oversee that job, but we weren't doing it in office. We didn't own vineyards. We didn't have overhead for a winery. We didn't have a tasting room. What we had, Mitchell, were sales. And that is what the acquirer was interested in. The acquirer had plenty of vineyards and tasting rooms and wineries. They also had a herb and very large sales force. And they took the sales that we had. We were very successful in the markets where we were. And they did the math, and they said, with our sales force and with our assets, with our resources, we can really push this product, and it has a lot of growth potential. And that is why we were able to attract the attention of the largest family-owned winery in the world.
So
amazing. I mean, when I first heard the story, one of the other stories that I thought about was the New York housewives Bethenny Frankel, who actually sold her Skinny Girl line for, at this point, a disclosed $49 million to Beam Global. But she actually kept the name rights. Now, you actually went ahead, of course, and you sold all of those name rights to them back in 2005. It's just amazing how you started this company and over a period of time turned around and actually sold the whole entire thing to this largest private winery in the United States. And I think it motivates people out there to know that you don't have to have tons of money, that you could actually go out and speak to people face to face, and that you could be creative and do this on sales, really not even have a whole lot of experience within that particular industry, as you've indicated, correct?
Correct. In fact, what we tell people is you can outsource everything except for sales, except for bookkeeping, and except for quality control. In other words, if you keep track of your numbers and you keep track of your quality, and then you also do your own sales, there are people out there that will take your money to do everything else, and they're very expert at it. So, like, for instance, we had a winemaker on board with her own lab, and she would not pay for contractors who couldn't produce wine to her specifications. So a lot of people say, well, how did you keep the quality up? You know, you got all those gold medals. How did you do that? Well, it's simple. We didn't have to buy anything that wasn't perfect. And so consequently, a lot of people who they get into business, first thing they think is, oh, I need bricks and mortar, you know, or if you're in the wine business, I need vineyards. They are under a lot of financial pressure to put anything mediocre that they might create on the market because they've got such financial investment in it. So we weren't like that. We didn't have that kind of financial pressure. I think the other thing that I'd like to add is that when you get into business, after you've been into business for a couple of years, that's when you find out what the real work is. You have this idea in your head about what the real work is in your business. After a couple of years, you find out you're dead wrong about that. Like, for instance, we thought our business was about wine. It didn't have anything to do with wine. It had to do with distribution management.
Fascinating. So actually, wouldn't you say, though, that by not having a whole lot of experience in this particular niche, it actually turned out to be an asset because you kind of looked at everything so totally different than what your typical person in the wine industry probably would have been viewing it as. It almost became an asset to you.
Absolutely. We had fresh eyes that we were using to look at the situation. We asked a lot of questions where if we'd had experience in the wine industry or we grew up in a family that was in that industry, we would have had all these preconceived notions which would have led us to everything that had already been done. Well, Barefoot was really different. Nothing had been done like that. There hadn't been a fun label out there before. You had to speak French in order to order a glass of wine. That wasn't true with Barefoot.
Right.
So, it was a very friendly, easy to pronounce label. It was non-vintage, which was very unusual. And it really disrupted the market. And if you have the kind of education and background in a particular industry, oftentimes it's more difficult to disrupt the market because you're so close to it. You have preconceived ideas and you think you already know what's going on. Well, we knew we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, right. So now take us through, because we obviously talked a little bit about how you two met, and we certainly talked about how you got started, and we certainly talked about, how you sold the business. So tell everybody a little bit, take us up to speed. I know that you're involved in a lot of different entrepreneurial teachings, with students and consulting with Fortune 500 companies and startups. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Well, when we were in business, our staff kept saying, and our associates, you guys should really write a book, because you have such a fresh, clean idea about business. And so we put it off for, and we sold the business. And after we sold the business, we did some consulting and whatnot. It's impossible to retire when you're wired up like we are. So
sure.
We finally broke down and we wrote the book. And, we didn't like the way the book read. It was too prescriptive and this and that. So then, as Bonnie says, we actually got Rick Cushman to write the book for us. It was much better, became a New York Times bestseller. So then after it becomes a New York Times bestseller, people start saying, well, Michael and Bonnie, would you come and speak at our convention? Would you speak at our conference? Would you speak at our school? And we said, well, okay, and we weren't really great public speakers, but, it's like anything, you get good at it by doing it. And so we did a lot of it. In fact, we spoke at 40 schools that teach entrepreneurship, and we've probably given keynote addresses at more than 30 conferences. And those keynote addresses and everything have to do with entrepreneurship. They have to do with people who are aspiring or their launch phase or their growth phase entrepreneurs. And what are the problems that they're going to face? So the idea is, what did we take with us from that get rich slow, scheme, that 19-year experience, and how did we boil that down and get that into a set of guiding principles? So we call it the entrepreneur's GPS. It stands for Guiding Principles for Success rather than Global Positioning Satellite.
Right.
Exactly. And it's like basically it's 20 principles that help you get to your destination. And so it starts off with things like, why are you doing it in the first place? Let's start there. And so we put together a video series on it, and we're giving video courses now. We have courses that are showing up on Udemy, and we speak and travel all around the United States. But what we've done is we've devoted our lives to helping the next generation of entrepreneurs be successful by not making the mistakes we made and not buying into the popular misconceptions that are out there about being successful in business. It's not going to be an overnight sensation. I'm sorry. Your face is probably not going to be on Fast Company. But the idea is you can be successful if you follow these principles.
And that is why I was so thankful and so excited to have both of you on the program today, because I know that there are so many people out there listening that really need this. They need a good story. People that have actually done this together, have made it happen. I know, Bonnie, you're involved in the Women's Entrepreneur Forum. I know you go out to all the various schools, and you're right now you're actually giving back, and I think it's it's so wonderful, and I know that there's so many people that can actually benefit from all of your wisdom. I mean, all the lessons that you've learned through all of these years, and it's just a fascinating story. Let me ask you, as far as then going forward for the both of you, I mean, you've talked a little bit about your entrepreneur speaking and your engagement. Personally, other professional engagements that you're doing, what else do you have planned?
Well, we have a mini estate here in the wine country in Sonoma County. It's just an hour north of San Francisco. And it really is a beautiful spot. And we have had a few kind of mastermind meetings here, gatherings. And that is so perfect in this environment where it's really quiet, peaceful. We've got an organic garden. We can all cook together. And by having this one-on-one with just a few business people or business couples, we're really able to get into their own personal needs in their business and answer their questions and work with them in a very close manner. And to have them here for 2 or 3 days in these mastermind sessions at our private home, I think this is really exciting. It's certainly something that Michael and I truly enjoy, and the people that come here really love it as well. So that's something that I'd really like to do more of, Mitchell. It seems to work out very well. And being able to talk to people one-on-one and discuss exactly what their needs are and to know that we can really make a big difference in their business is really a blessing that we love to share.
No, that's really exciting. And in reading the book, I heard, early on how, Robert Mondavi's name came up early. And so, you're actually competing with all of these big names, and look how successful and how far you've come, and look how, after selling the business, really what you're doing now to give back, I think is just such a terrific story for everybody. In parting, what words of wisdom do you have for people out there who, for one reason or another have either started a business or haven't found the time or haven't found the encouragement? Is there some parting words before we kind of wrap this up in a lightning round of some questions that we have before we say goodbye?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay, so I guess the best piece of advice is don't get the idea that you're going into business and therefore you need to have a big flashy office or, a big production facility or a plantation. You don't need any of that. What you really need is purchase orders. Focus on sales. That is the key. Don't worry about the business plan. Worry about the cash flow plan. And don't get the idea that money's going to solve all your problems. It isn't. Sales is going to solve all your problems. All money does is dilute your ownership. You begin to lose control of your company because people aren't giving you money for nothing. They're taking a piece of your action until finally you're working for them. So I guess one of the parting comments is to start small, make your mistakes in a small area. You're going to make mistakes, and that's quite all right. And then you can correct those. In other words, get your act together before you take your show on the road. Bonnie, do you want to add to that?
Well, of course I do.
That's right. You jump right in there, Bonnie.
Well, it's what we'd already discussed, Mitchell, which is using contracted services. And don't just contract out for services you need, but actually manage them, watch over them. Make sure you've got a good line of communication with the people and the companies that you're relying on to get the jobs done that are required in order to get your product to market and to keep it on the shelf or to keep it available to your end users. And by using contracted services and managing them properly, you can spend your focus and your time focusing on sales, just like before.
The reason why I chose books to sponsor my Fast Pitch Round, that's easy. I love books, and books is owned by a powerful company. Books that stands behind all their products, books, was willing to offer an exclusive free 30-day trial to my podcast listeners with one free audiobook download. If any listener doesn't like their book, Books will exchange it for you, and you can cancel at any time. Books allows you to keep your free download, and you can choose from over 180,000 bestsellers, new releases, classics, and more. I recommend The Last Lecture by Randy Posh. So dream big, get inspired, and listen up. Go on over to mitchellchadro.com/books. There are so many awesome quotes in here, and I'm going to have that obviously, all back at mitchellchadro.com. And then in parting here, I have this quick what's on your mind. So it's just like, 4 or 5 quick questions and just quickly to close our session out here. So in terms of what's on your mind, how would you guys define success after all of this? What's success look like to you now?
I think success is monetizing on your brand equity. As long as you own your business owns you. And because your business owns you, it's telling you to put more money all the time into your business. You start to feel guilty if you take a vacation. That's really tough.
And go ahead, Bonnie, jump in there.
Yeah, part of the success that Michael and I are most proud of is really all of the nonprofits and communities that have benefited by Barefoot Wines. We grew our brand not through paid advertising, but by supporting nonprofits and community fundraisers. And I am so proud of that and to know that we've really made a difference in improving so many communities, and we've helped so many nonprofits, and they in return helped us to grow our brand. That really gives me a wonderful sense of pride.
Yep, it's a real class act. I mean, everybody's really going to benefit from all of this. In terms of the books that you read, I know that I just had heard before you guys came on with me that you're actually going to be heading down to San Diego for the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, and that's really exciting, and that whole book series is wonderful. And so I was going to ask for another book, but, as I was going to ask you that question, I know that you actually have another book, and it's called The Entrepreneurial Culture, 23 Ways to Engage and Empower Your People, which is actually a companion to the Barefoot Spirit. So, I mean, really, people can kind of go out and get that, and I'll have links to that as well. So that's a question that I was going to ask you about that. But who are your business heroes? I mean, who have really influenced you? Because I know that you're going to be a lot of heroes and a lot of influencers for many people that are listening today. I know that you're individuals that I'm going to certainly follow here on out for the rest of my career, because you're really, it's just a wonderful family story, husband and wife and business partners, and how you've been able to sort of balance everything. It's really a true inspiration. But just maybe some of your heroes or some of your influencers so that others can also maybe, take a look at them as well.
Well, this might surprise you, Mitchell, but one of the inventors that I think was really fabulous in our history is Thomas Edison.
Ah!
He worked so hard to get his ideas out there, and I think it was his quote, and it might have been someone else's, but they said, you've been working years on trying to get the light bulb to work, and you've been unsuccessful. He said, no, that's not true. I have successfully found hundreds of ways that it won't work. Now, I think that's a fabulous idea, and not only that, but once he did develop the light bulb, he had to go ahead and find a way of getting it to the people. So it's not enough just to come up with a great idea like the light bulb. Now what are you going to do? You have to get it to the marketplace.
Exactly. And, Bonnie, you're very intuitive, because that actually took me into my next question, and you've actually already answered it, and that is, what type of quote can we use? Thomas Edison, there you go. So you kind of answered 2 questions in one, and I really like that. I have to say that to me, you're like entrepreneurial spirits, and we just really want to thank you so very much for everything that you've done, for all the hard work that you've put in to this business, and now that you've sold it and you're doing all of these other, even more important things that are inspiring people. We just want to thank you so very much for spending a little bit of time with us today, and I know that everyone is really going to benefit from it.
Well, thank you very much. And as a matter of fact, we have a free gift for your listeners. they can go to www.thebarefootspirit.com/3mistakes. So think about it. What are the 3 biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make? This is a report we did on it, and it's free, and you can download it at www.thebarefootspirit.com/3mistakes.
Really, really generous, Michael and Bonnie. We just want to thank you so very much again. I'll have all of the notes back at my website. Graphic designer sponsors the wrap-up round because as a startup podcast, I was not going to hire my own graphic designer, but I needed help with my graphics for all my social media. So if you head on over to mitchellchadro.com/graphic designer, if people obviously want to get in contact with you, I know you've already mentioned a few ways. They're certainly going to get that really generous free download that you're providing the listeners. But how else can they sort of stay in communication with you?
Well, one way is they can go onto Twitter, and we're barefoot_spirit on Twitter. We're also on Instagram, and that's Barefoot Spirit. And then we have the Barefoot Spirit Facebook page. They can check that out. And I don't know, Bonnie, what else? How else can they get us? Every way possible.
Well, I don't know. They can just fly on over and knock on our door and come in for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine.
And you know what? I like that because when I'm down there, Bonnie, I know that you're all into face-to-face, and I think that that's also another wonderful lesson that people can learn. It's that, that old-fashioned, stop in, say hello, kick the tires, find out how things are going, instead of, just, texting or emails or, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of good things there, and maybe we'll do that. That sounds really, really neat.
We would love to have you.
Terrific. Well, listen, guys, you take care. Thank you so very much, and we hope to be speaking with you very soon again.
Thanks, Mitchell. This has really been a blast.
Yeah, so much.
Terrific. Right. Bye-bye now. Please subscribe to my email list at mitchellchadro.com/signup. You will get all the full interview transcripts, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, where I talk about these free resources in show 006. You'll get the startup checklist, education and training materials, and other resources just by signing up at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Back at mitchellchadro.com/signup, help me boost the rankings of the Listen Up Show, the Startup Entrepreneur Podcast, by providing a well-written review in iTunes. mitchellchadro.com/iTunes. It helps other people find the show. If you actually need instructions on how to do this, you can find that back at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Thank you so much for subscribing to my email list and providing a written review on iTunes. Until next time.